I would like to share some of the research we did with the children. We had 3 schools involved, and we were asking them, how long do you actually sleep? And the answers were very mixed. So they actually didn't really know how long they slept. And so we thought, well, maybe we can observe these things. So we came up with a question together with the children: when do young children go to sleep and get up? And ultimately, how long do they sleep? Having heard about the teenagers, we thought that would be interesting to see in the younger children. And then we also heard about the body clock, and we discussed time of day. So they came up with the other question: does time of day affect how alert or sleepy they feel? And are there any consequences? The measures we used, they observed. We've given them sleep diaries, and they filled the diaries in for 7 days, for the get-up time and the bedtime. And some of them were the watches, which measure activity levels. They also measured reaction time, and they recorded their degree of sleepiness. I said we had 3 schools across Oxfordshire, about 180 children from year 3 to year 6. So when and how long did the children sleep? We recorded bedtime and get-up time, and one school recorded it from year 4. They go to bed about 8:30, they get up after 7, they sleep about 10.5 hours. The other school, they were year 5 and 6, 10 to 11-year-old, they went to bed a bit later, woke up around the same time, and slept about 10 hours and 10 minutes. The third school, they are 9 and 10 years old, went to bed quite late and got up the same time, slept about 10 hours. So these are the data we've got. And the next question was, actually, how is it represented when we look into the watches, the objective data? So we wanted to compare the data. And the children collected their activity data, and you see here a double plot of activity during the day, then they sleep, and then the next day activity. So that's day 1, 2, 3, 4, and they are double plotted. And if you collapse the data, you see an average graph, and it's very similar. 7 o'clock, they get up, activity, 5 p.m. the highest activity, and they go to sleep at around 9 o'clock. We also had some actograms from the teachers, and I can tell you the activity level was only half of it. So how does the data compare? These are the diary data from that school. It's 9 o'clock to 7. And it's remarkably similar. I was really surprised. There's only a 5-minute difference in the bedtime. And it took them a bit longer probably to get up, because they probably woke up, but they didn't get out of bed for a couple of minutes. So we add another 20 minutes. So in total, they get about 10.5 hours, which is very good for the children. So the other question was, does time of day affect how alert or sleepy they feel? And so they came up with the idea of measuring the sleepiness across the school day on every hour. So here are the degree of sleepiness, and they could rate from extremely alert, giving it a score of 1, to extremely sleepy, giving it a score of 9. So at 9 o'clock, you see here that he is extremely alert. There are only a couple, so this is a frequency, how many children actually rated it. And then they got sleepier and sleepier. So you see they are alert, but some are sleepy. An hour later, at 10, they are more highly alert. And at 11, there are even a greater number of children very alert and extremely alert. At 12, after 4 hours being in school, it turns out they're getting more sleepier or not as alert. They are not as alert anymore. After the break, it increases a bit, and then it wobbles around. Some are sleepy, some are alert, some stay alert, some are alert and sleepy. So then they asked, what could we do to find out whether there are consequences of their grade of sleepiness? And so they added to the sleepiness scale the reaction time. So at every hour, they measured sleepiness and the reaction time. can't really see, but I think this is where they measure the reaction time. So one person holds a ruler, and another one needs to catch it. They are not told when the person drops the ruler, and then they measure the distance it took them to catch the ruler. And then you can convert it from centimeters into milliseconds. And they filled in a chart, and this is a chart over the day with a rating of their sleepiness. And then they did 5 times, they repeated the reaction time 5 times. They averaged it, so they also learned about how to average and how variable things can be, which is very important in science to consider the variation. And they converted and wrote down whether they were super, excellent, good. And what I did, because I collected all the data together, I plotted then the correlation of the Karolinska, the sleepiness, and the reaction time. And what you can see here is a correlation. The sleepier the children got, the slower they went. So actually, the sleepier you are, the slower your reaction time is. So in terms of our questions, yes, we could measure it, and they get a good amount of sleep. And there is a time of day effect on how asleep or alert they are, and you can actually also measure it. And these are children from year 3 to year 6. And so we thought that's a great project, and they were all very, very enthusiastic and involved. Thank you.
Finish the first half this evening. We have 4 pieces that have each been composed especially for this evening's performance, and they've been composed by the people that will be performing them. The first of these has been made by musicians on the Jerwood OE Experience Scheme. They're young professional musicians working with the orchestra as part of launching into the world of being a musician. Their piece has taken Purcell as an inspiration and really follows a lot of what Russell told us. So we have opening sections that follow the idea of sleep pressure and the idea of the circadian rhythm. Then we look at the things that might interfere with sleep. One of the major ones being electric light, and you'll hear in the violins lights get turned on. More and more and more lights get turned on. And obviously that electric light has been a huge change in our sleeping patterns. Drugs such as caffeine, that's the next section you'll hear, our caffeine trembling going on. And finally, the idea of the 24-hour society, not only jet lag from travel, but people shift working, and you'll hear all sorts of ideas coming through canonically. Before we return at the end of the piece to the 2 sleep systems, the circadian system and the sleep pressure, this time superimposed on top of each other. So this is the first of the 4 pieces written for this evening's concert. Thank you. Now, every one of the students from Burford School, who you can see sat around waiting patiently to play, everyone's made their own individual composition. We'll play a couple of those to you this evening, not selected on particular merit, but selected because they wrote them for our instruments. They wrote them for the instruments that we play at the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment. So we've got two pieces, the first by Emma, the second by Phoebe. But as I say, these are two out of 16, 17, 18, 20, 200 pieces that have been made, and each one is wonderful. Thank you. And so to our last piece in the first half. This piece combines ideas from all the students at Burford. And we took really as our starting point the first 8 bars of Bach's Goldberg Variations. And we looked at a lot of things Bach did to make his variations, and we mapped them onto the ideas we'd learnt about sleep. So this piece divides in 2. There's a waking section to start with, and you'll absolutely know the transition to a sleeping section. And the sleeping section takes us through the different stages of sleep until we reach REM sleep. And in fact, in our piece, to not keep you here too long tonight, in our piece we only do 1 cycle of those. Would you like more cycles? Yeah. We do 1 cycle until we wake again. And in fact, our re-wakening is with the opening of Bach's Goldberg Variations. Thank you.